You're here in this moment for a reason. Something within you, quiet yet powerful, guided you towards this video. By the time you finish watching, you'll understand that this isn't mere coincidence. It's a subtle calling from deep within your soul that has been guiding you silently all along. Transcending your former self isn't a dramatic event announced with fanfare. It's a quiet journey unfolding within. Not about becoming someone entirely new, but about releasing what never truly belonged to you in the first place. It's about reconnecting with who you've always been at your core. This transformation doesn't announce itself loudly, it whispers. One day, you simply realize you no longer identify with the person you once were. You no longer resonate with the same environments, conversations, or aspects of yourself that previously defined your existence. As Carl Jung observed, authentic spiritual growth doesn't come from perfecting your personality. It emerges from transcending it, letting go of everything non-essential, all the armor and illusions you've built up, to rediscover your soul's essence, that quiet truth that has always resided within. One of the earliest indicators of this transformation is a changed relationship with your personal history. What once seemed central to your identity now feels distant, like watching someone else's story unfold. You can observe it and remember it, but it no longer defines who you are. There's no need to reject your past, nor do you feel nostalgic about it. You experience calm when remembering, because you can witness your journey without feeling compelled to explain or justify any part of it. You no longer tell your story through the lens of your wounds. You don't define yourself by past suffering or achievements. You recognize these were all necessary parts of your journey. But with unshakable certainty, you know your worth isn't measured by any of them. Your past experiences no longer control who you are or limit what you can become. In the space once occupied by guilt or pride, something new emerges. A gentle freedom that allows you to see your past simply for what it is. The past. This emotional distance isn't detachment, it's integration. If you're finding value in these insights, take a moment right now to subscribe to Motivation Dose and hit that notification bell. This channel is dedicated to bringing you content that nurtures your authentic self. Like this video if it resonates with your journey, and share it with someone who might need these words today. Your support helps us reach more souls on their path towards wholeness. You begin noticing that things that once triggered you, that stirred something deep inside, now pass through you without leaving scars. Words that once wounded you now dissolve in your awareness. Relationships that kept you anchored to outdated versions of yourself start losing their grip, not because you're rejecting them, but because there's nothing in you for them to hold on to anymore. As this transformation progresses, your emotions stop dictating your reactions, not because you've disconnected from your feelings, but because you've learned to discern which part of you is responding from the present moment and which part is simply repeating familiar patterns. Your inner dialogue shifts significantly. The thoughts you once repeated for survival no longer dominate your mind. You're not seeking redemption or punishing yourself for who you used to be. You simply observe and move forward, understanding that every chapter before this one was necessary to bring you here. This understanding doesn't come from intellect. It emerges from the soul. It's through this awareness that your old self begins to dissolve. Not because it vanishes, but because you no longer live there. When you stop inhabiting that former version of yourself, something inside becomes lighter. You don't forget what you experienced. You simply no longer need it as your foundation. Your choices begin arising from a place that's freer, clearer, more aligned with your authentic self rather than the story you used to tell about yourself. Those rigid self-definitions that once seemed immovable, "This is just how I am," or "I can't change," begin to blur. Not because you fought against them, but because they no longer make sense to the person you're becoming. You no longer act out of a need to maintain a solid identity. You've realized your soul doesn't require labels to feel alive. Transcending your old self isn't about destroying it. It's about honoring what it once was while moving forward without carrying what no longer serves you. You stop clinging to the persona you created for survival. You no longer feel compelled to repeat emotional patterns or adjust yourself to fit spaces you've outgrown. The gentleness with which you release, the ease with which you let go without resistance, these are clear signs you're no longer vibrating from a conditioned self. You're beginning to live from your true self, the self that doesn't need to defend or prove anything, the self that simply is. Then something remarkable happens. Your way of connecting with others naturally shifts. You start relating to people from a clearer, more honest, more unburdened place. You no longer seek in others what you've learned to give yourself. You don't look for a savior. You don't need external validation to feel real. Your presence is no longer something you bargain with out of fear of being alone. Previously, your relationships were often built on need, on unspoken agreements rooted in pain, on unconscious emotional trade-offs. But now there is space to breathe, space to pause before reacting, space to observe without absorbing everything around you. When you transcend your old patterns, you stop repeating the emotional cycles that once held you captive. Not because the world has changed, but because you're no longer making choices from your wounds. Your sensitivity no longer leads you blindly. Your giving no longer comes from emptiness. It arises from balance. And that changes everything. I want to pause here and speak directly to you. If you're resonating with this message, this is your sign to take action towards your growth. Join our community by subscribing to Motivation Dose right now. Drop a comment sharing which part of this video speaks to your journey. Every like and share helps spread this message to others who may need it. Together, we create a ripple effect of awakening. Now let's continue exploring these powerful signs of transformation. Your relationships stop being mirrors of what you lack and become reflections of what you already possess. You no longer seek conversations to avoid silence or intimacy to escape yourself. You're finally able to share from a place of fullness rather than lack. This is the essence of true transformation, when you no longer need to be anything other than what you are. When your past no longer defines you, when your emotions serve as messengers rather than masters, when your story becomes a sacred memory instead of a living script, that's when you know you've begun remembering who you truly are. Even if someone doesn't resonate with you, there's no drama or resentment, because your emotional stability no longer depends on another person's willingness to stay. You no longer place your peace in someone else's hands. This quiet, invisible shift changes everything. When you begin embodying emotional independence, you discover a freedom that's not just liberating, but grounding. You're no longer running away or clinging. You're simply present. And that presence is enough. Your presence, once a background element of who you were, becomes your new language of love. A love that doesn't demand, doesn't beg to be seen, doesn't wait for reciprocity to feel real. It's a quieter love, deeper and more genuine. It doesn't scream through promises or perform affection to be validated. It simply exists, steady, congruent, and peaceful, not because it's trying to prove something, but because it doesn't need to. You begin connecting from a place of truth rather than from a need to uphold an image or fulfill a role. You no longer invest energy in conversations that don't resonate, nor maintain relationships that exist only out of habit or history. Your energy, more refined and attuned, naturally filters out what doesn't align. Even if that process brings some pain, it also brings relief and clarity. Your former self chose from urgency, from fear of being left behind, from desperation to be accepted at any cost. But now you choose differently because you've made peace with your own silence. You've learned to sit with it, to welcome it like an old friend. You understand that being with someone who doesn't truly connect with you can feel lonelier than solitude itself. So you remain with yourself, even if that means walking away from what you once thought was love. You stop confusing intensity with truth and drama with depth. You begin recognizing that what brings peace is what truly has roots, and what requires constant tension to survive is often just masking disconnection. You no longer try to force understanding. You don't need to convince anyone of your growth or justify why you can no longer remain in spaces that stifle your soul. Your vibration, the energy you emit simply by being true to yourself, speaks louder than words ever could. Without intending to, it triggers reactions in those who haven't yet crossed their own thresholds. Some will distance themselves. Others will draw closer, but from a different place, from honesty rather than need. And you'll be at peace with both outcomes because your center is no longer defined by your relationships. Now, your relationships are defined by your center. In this new arrangement, whatever remains does so because it truly resonates, not because it's being forced to stay. This profound shift in how you relate to others quietly reshapes your entire reality. What once felt essential gently dissolves. This isn't rejection, it's clarity. Clarity born from having explored your own darkness so thoroughly that you no longer need to project it onto others. Your former self searched for mirrors, people who would confirm your worth, who would fill your emptiness with half-presences and temporary comforts. But you're no longer available for that kind of connection. You've come to understand that true connection doesn't consume you, it expands you. Doesn't ask you to betray your essence, but invites you to live it more fully. When you begin connecting from this renewed energy, everything transforms. Connections become subtler, more honest, lighter. The strength of a bond no longer lies in how loud or intense it is, but in its frequency. In that silent space, where two souls can simply exist together without explanation, without rescue, without clinging. In this new state, you learn to set boundaries not from fear, but from love. Self-love. These boundaries don't divide. They bring order. They organize your energy, your time, your internal space. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to maintain what isn't growing with you. You don't stay out of fear of losing what little remains. You've shifted towards a different vibration, one that doesn't apologize for evolving. You no longer feel the need to ask forgiveness for choosing your truth. That itself proves your old self is no longer guiding your relationships. Now it's your soul. And your soul only chooses what nourishes, what uplifts, what reminds you of who you truly are. From this place, you begin understanding the true purpose of companionship, not to complete you, but to share who you've already become. You no longer seek shelter in others because you've become your own safe space. This energetic self-sufficiency isn't isolation, it's soul-level maturity. You stop carrying emotions that don't belong to you. You stop absorbing what others refuse to transform. You no longer fall into the trap of healing those who haven't chosen healing for themselves. You no longer dissolve in patterns where you once tried to be enough by becoming less of yourself. Because now you know, real love isn't disguised sacrifice. It's presence without pressure, connection without chains. Within that clean, quiet connection, powerful things begin unfolding. You become a mirror of transformation for others, not because you intend to lead or guide them, but simply because your vibration reaches them. Your mere presence in a state of coherence starts revealing truths others have long avoided within themselves. Some will thank you for this, while others may resist it. Either way, you remain at peace, because your connection is no longer born from duty or obligation. It's rooted in the freedom of being authentically yourself. In that space, you understand something profound. The deepest, most meaningful bonds aren't those that promise the most, but those that honor each other's evolution. That level of connection can only emerge once you've walked through your own personal transformation. You faced your old self, embraced it, and lovingly released it, not out of rejection, but with understanding. You finally see that your past version wasn't wrong or broken. It was simply trying to protect you the only way it knew how. But now that protection is no longer necessary, you no longer need to hide behind a character or wear a mask to feel worthy of love. You've stopped striving to be accepted. Now you simply are. And that is enough. Without effort, without seeking approval, your essence radiates more purely than ever before. And in that purity, you discover a new kind of intimacy. Not about sharing every wound or narrating your journey in detail, but about allowing yourself to be seen as you are in this moment, without decoration or pretense. You no longer carry the weight of old disguises. It no longer hurts you to be misunderstood. It doesn't wound you like before, to be overlooked or left behind. That's because the source of your value no longer resides in others' perceptions. It lives within the relationship you've built with yourself. This relationship was born from silence, from lonely nights when you chose not to fall back into old patterns, from days when you decided to hold yourself together even when nothing else was holding you. From that deep root, your old self gently steps away, not because you banish it, but because it no longer resonates with your current frequency. You can look back and honor that version of you as part of your story, recognizing it did its best with what it knew, what it had, and what it believed necessary for survival. But you're no longer surviving, you're creating. In this state of conscious creation, there's no room for the rigid structures of the past. Now there's space for softness, for subtlety, for that which vibrates without needing to shout. Your soul no longer needs to impress, defend, or prove its light. It simply inhabits it. From that space, every relationship that remains or enters your life reflects this new state of being, where love no longer feels burdensome, but supportive without being invasive. Where sharing doesn't stem from lack, but from fullness. Where choosing someone or something isn't about clinging, but about honoring what aligns with who you are now. Your vision of life shifts irreversibly. You stop perceiving things as you once did. What formerly seemed unfair now reveals itself as part of a greater design. What you once labeled as mistakes are now recognized as crucial moments of growth. You no longer speak to yourself as a victim. Your consciousness has expanded enough to recognize that even the most painful moments carried a purpose beyond the suffering. Transcending your old self isn't just healing wounds, it's seeing from a higher vantage point. Not because it makes you feel better, but because your soul can no longer look through the same lens. You've elevated internally, and that inner elevation allows you to perceive what once felt like chaos as hidden order, as silent teachings, as coded messages waiting to be understood. Your relationship with time shifts too. You no longer live waiting constantly. You don't chase what slips away, nor insist everything must happen immediately. You start living in harmony with your soul's natural rhythm, unhurried by external pressures, guided by inner maturity. In this rhythm, everything flows differently. Your priorities reorganize. What once seemed crucial now fades, and things you overlooked now feel sacred. You begin valuing silence. You revere the pause. You trust the process, even when you don't understand every step. You no longer need guarantees to move forward. You just need to feel aligned. That's enough, because now you know the soul doesn't need to comprehend everything to continue. It just needs to be in tune with what resonates as truth. This alignment becomes your compass. You stop making decisions from fear of mistakes. You stop living urgently to fulfill others' expectations. Your choices are no longer reactions to past pain. They're quiet acts, honoring your present. That simple yet powerful shift transforms how you experience life. You no longer force meaning from every situation. You've learned that true understanding often arrives only after letting go. With that energetic maturity, you stop trying to control everything. You release the need to demand immediate answers from life. You begin living with more softness. This softness isn't weakness or passivity. It's refined, silent power. Your strength becomes something inward and unwavering. You no longer feel compelled to showcase your process or prove your transformation to anyone. Your honest silence speaks volumes more than words ever could. This changes how you move through the world. You navigate your days with greater awareness. The smallest moments, brief pauses, subtle gestures feel meaningful. You're no longer chasing the next accomplishment or measuring growth by what others can see. Now you measure it by how you feel upon waking, by the calm you experience in solitude, by the peace humming inside you even when everything around you is in motion. Transcending your former self means stepping beyond the limited identity you once clung to, living from a higher plane of perception without leaving your body. It's inhabiting a new frequency without escaping the world. You understand it's no longer about reacting to life's challenges, but consciously choosing how you experience reality. This conscious choice becomes the seed of transformation, shifting how you relate to every aspect of your existence. What once felt burdensome becomes an opportunity for presence. What once drained you now dissolves quietly without resistance or resentment. Though this transformation may not be immediately visible to others, it runs deep, enduring, and powerful. Your inner peace no longer depends on favorable circumstances. It flows from living faithfully, aligned with your true self. This inner fidelity becomes non-negotiable. Your anchor, your center, your guiding truth. Your former self measured worth through achievements, others' approval, external validation. But you're no longer chasing those illusions. You've discovered true fulfillment comes quietly, in your breath's rhythm, your chosen words, the calm dignity with which you walk away from whatever no longer nourishes your soul without causing harm or conflict. You view challenges differently now. They're not punishments or obstacles meant to break you. They're thresholds your soul must cross to awaken dormant parts of yourself. You stop running from them. You face them knowing they're not here to destroy you, but to unveil you. This shift fundamentally changes your energy. Your vibration no longer emits fear or doubt. It radiates truth. A truth needing no defense, speaking through your eyes, your presence, your stillness. In that moment of inner clarity, you realize the most significant change wasn't external. It happened within. The deepest transformation wasn't rearranging your environment, but seeing life through your awakened soul's lens. From this awakening, the ordinary becomes sacred. Not because the world changed, but because your perception is no longer colored by lack or fear. Your gaze softens and expands, filling with gratitude. You no longer need divine signs to believe or absolute certainty to proceed. You walk with a slower inner rhythm, not because you've slowed externally, but because you're no longer chasing what wasn't meant for you. You grant yourself freedom to choose differently, even without understanding. You permit yourself not to have all answers, not to control everything, to leave space for mystery, because you trust life works with you, not against you. In that sacred space, everything aligns, not because you're doing more, but because you're resisting less. Your vibration becomes a magnet, attracting only what resonates with who you've become. You no longer need to force, hold on, or push. What belongs with you stays. What doesn't fades peacefully without drama. Even difficulties take new shape. They don't disappear, but no longer shatter you, because you're not approaching them from the same wounded self. You face them with depth, seeking understanding rather than immediate answers. With maturity, aiming not to win, but to stay aligned. You meet life not with urgency, but with presence. You stop striving to be someone and start embodying who you truly are. In that embodiment, everything changes, not suddenly or loudly, but completely. When your energy aligns with your truth, reality responds accordingly. Not chaos or struggle, but synchronicity and clarity. Just that quiet inner whisper speaking without words, effortlessly reminding you what you've always known. You're no longer who you used to be. You've transcended. This transcendence doesn't announce itself. It's embodied, felt in silence, recognized only by your presence's depth. There's no exact moment when everything clicks, no marked arrival point. One day, you simply notice. You don't react the same way. Things that once hurt barely reach you. You no longer move, driven by the urgency that once dictated your inner world. You've changed at the root. This change runs so deep, it needs no name to be real. You feel it in how you carry yourself, how you choose peace over performance. It shows in your ability to sit silently without anxiety, welcome uncertainty without losing center, live from essentials without embellishment. Your energy no longer scatters. It consolidates, aligns, becomes a current flowing not from pressure or expectation, but from an unnamed inner source, needing no explanation. This guidance comes from connecting to something deeper than identity, labels, or story. You no longer exist to maintain an image. You exist to express an essence. That essence has always been with you, waiting patiently while you chased, proved, survived, orbited distractions. Then you let go. You chose differently. You moved forward. Without realizing it, you transcended. Not as achievement, but as natural outcome of choosing honesty over habit, staying true when silence was harder than noise, standing by your soul when retreat would have been easier. Now that old version no longer controls you. In its place stands someone real, calmer, more authentically you than ever before. From this authenticity, a new chapter begins, one where you respond with presence rather than react. You no longer chase approval, having remembered your inherent worth. You no longer seek belonging. Your soul, having remembered its eternal home was always within. Life is no longer a race. It becomes sacred unfolding. Not because everything's perfect, but because you've stopped resisting what isn't. You welcome each moment not with resignation, but with peace from reconciliation with the present. Your days aren't repetitive cycles. They're living expressions of your new frequency. Each word, gaze, and step carries the imprint of someone living from their center. That imprint, though invisible, leaves undeniable impact. A transcended soul doesn't need to move mountains to transform the world. Its presence itself heals. It's silent medicine, a reminder that aligned living isn't just possible, It's powerful. It shows others healing isn't mythical. Letting go isn't forgetting. Becoming isn't rejecting your past self. It's honoring the journey. Understanding every step prepared you for this moment, this now. Now that you're here, your vibration speaks for you, and the world responds. If this message resonates deep within, it's not coincidence. Your soul already knew. It was waiting for you to remember yourself. Because transcending your old self isn't an ending, it's a beginning. A beginning where you finally return fully to yourself without fear, masks, or weight. Carl Jung said enlightenment doesn't come from imagining figures of light, but from making darkness conscious. In those words lies a truth most spend lifetimes avoiding. Facing your darkness, acknowledging your shadow, is among life's most terrifying yet liberating experiences. It's not poetic metaphor, but a raw process of peeling back who you thought you were to meet the parts you tried to ignore or deny. If you're here now, something within you has already shifted. You've crossed that threshold where you no longer fear your mind's dark corners. You've stopped running and looked inward to confront the wounds, memories, patterns, and emotions that once controlled you. That's no small step. It's the beginning of true transformation. The shadow isn't something to destroy or erase. It's not your enemy, but a part awaiting your acceptance and love. Making darkness conscious means learning to see it, name it, and integrate it. When you do, something incredible happens. Your seemingly broken parts become your deepest wisdom. Pain becomes teacher. Fear becomes compass. Chaos becomes doorway to clarity. You've walked that path. You've taken your shadow's hand and said, "I see you. I know you're there, and I'm ready to listen." That takes courage and strength, a journey most avoid their entire lives. But you didn't. You made your shadow a bridge instead of a burden. Now you move through life from a more grounded, truthful, real place. If this space has accompanied you on that journey, if these words echo something ancient within your soul, know this: you're not alone. You're part of something greater, transcending language and time, a collective awakening, a shared remembering. There are others just like you, stepping from illusion into authenticity, choosing presence over perfection, wholeness over avoidance. If your heart feels called to continue exploring, shedding the false and embracing truth, then walk with us. Keep going, because every inward step echoes outward. Every time you choose truth over comfort, darkness over denial, light is born, not imagined or forced, but naturally revealed. You are not who you were, and you are not alone. If these words have stirred something within, if this journey resonates with your quiet inner truth, I invite you to stay close. This space was created for souls like yours, for those ready to walk a different path of depth, presence, and inner clarity. So take a moment to subscribe to Motivation Dose, not just to a channel, but to a movement of consciousness. Each video, each reflection, each moment we share is meant to support your journey and remind you who you truly are beneath all noise. Subscribe, and let's continue walking this path together.